Today we're taking a closer look at the ALPHAFLY and the Next% 2. A head-to-head shoe battle to decide which one you should buy for your marathon. Hello and welcome back to The Vegan Runner. So the spring marathons are looming and I know many of you will be just a few weeks away from the big day. I'm just days away from the Brighton Marathon, which I'm hoping to run in under 3 hours. So if you're anything like me, the taper has started and the nerves are slowly starting to creep in. All the big miles are done. Those weeks of running through midwinter rain are behind us and it's time to rest up and recover, ready for race day. Now I've had a bit of a dilemma over the past few weeks whether or not to run in the Nike ALPHAFLY, this is Kipchoge's sub 2 hour marathon shoe, or the Next% 2. This is the latest in the Vaporfly range, which has also been topping the podiums of the world majors since its release in October last year. So I'm making this video to help me decide and hopefully help you decide which shoe to run in on race day. If you have the same dilemma on which of these shoes to buy, or if you're weighing up your carbon plated options, hopefully this video will help. We'll take a look at and compare each of the major components of the shoes, the upper, the midsole, the outsole, as well as the weight, ride, comfort, fit and price, and score each of these out of 10 to find the overall score and hopefully find out which shoe comes out on top. Right, without further ado, let's get into it. So, race day shoes, you tend to want to run in something that's as light as possible. So let's start off by comparing the weight of the ALPHAFLY versus the Vaporfly. In my size, UK 7.5, the ALPHAFLY weighs in at 211 grams, versus the Vaporfly at 194 grams. And you can really feel that difference when you hold them in your hands and whilst they're on your feet running too. The ALPHAFLY definitely feels the heavier shoe. So a difference, it's not massive, but it's a difference of 17 grams per shoe or 34 grams overall. Not massive, but big enough to feel and potentially big enough to make a difference to your time over the marathon distance. The weight difference will equate to being only a few seconds over those 26 miles, but factor in a slightly more tired legs with that extra weight and it may be just a little bit more. You know, it's marginal, but I do prefer the lighter shoe here. So I'm going to give the Next% 2 a 10 for ducking under that 200 gram mark and the ALPHAFLY a 9 because it's not a heavy shoe by any means, but I think there are weight savings to be gained in this shoe, which I'll get into in a bit. Onto the upper then, both shoes sport a technical knitted upper, the Atom Knit on the ALPHAFLY and a new version of the Vapor Weave on the Next% 2. I'm glad the Next% has moved away from that high-tech kind of bin bag like upper of the original Next%, and the two uppers here are almost identical. If you look really closely, you can see the ALPHAFLY has what appears to be a looser knit, whereas the Next% 2 has a more kind of regimented weave with a structure that seems to kind of reflect the design of the laces, which is also the same on both shoes. TPU overlays at the front of both shoes have been swapped over, so on the 2 they're on the outside, whereas on the ALPHAFLY they're on the inside. The biggest differences are probably on the tongue and the lacing systems. Both has slanted lace holes at pretty much the same angle. Both use the very odd Venetian / Grandma's doily laces, which I'm not keen on at all. But the main differences here are the lace holes. We have just TPU reinforced with material on the inside with the Alpha, whereas the 2 has a much more rigid, more sturdy feeling lace guidance system. And whereas we have a fully gusseted tongue on the Alpha, which is basically all one piece with the upper, on the Next Percent 2 the tongue is completely free, except of course where it's attached at the bottom, and it's a completely different shape too, along with some extra padding thrown in on top. I really like the feel of both uppers really. I can't find a fault with either of them. I like the innovation on the 2, especially in the tongue area. Haven't seen anything like that before, and it's very comfortable on the top of your foot. But to be honest, you're going to be happy with both uppers. Both of them are super light, super breathable, and barely noticeable, which is what a good upper should feel like. Both shoes also have a decent amount of padding around the heel, probably a little bit more in the 2. And even though the laces are a bit fiddly, you can get a decent lockdown on both shoes. And I didn't experience any slipping at all. Once you get the fit dialed in, both shoes are going to hold your foot quite securely. So it's a really close one. As I say, you're going to be happy with whichever one you choose really in terms of the upper. But I'm going to give the ALPHAFLY a 9.5 and a 9.6 to the Next Percent 2, just marginally nudging ahead a fraction with that tongue. I just enjoyed that just a touch more. On to the midsole and the ride then, the reasons that we pick up these shoes in the first place. And this is probably where the shoes differ the most. Lots of extra ZoomX foam in the ALPHAFLY. We've got those 2 pretty cool AirPods as well, and the carbon fiber plate just peeking out from behind them. Noticeably less foam in the Next Percent 2. Less foam kind of overall, but particularly in the forefoot, it definitely gets a lot thinner here than the ALPHAFLY. And the heel as well, you know, I don't know if you can kind of see, but that flare thing that sticks out on the ALPHAFLY is a little bit shorter, I think, in the Next Percent 2. And we haven't got those pods or the exposed carbon fiber plate in there as well. So despite the less foam overall, the 2 has a greater stack height, sitting at 40mm compared to 39mm on the ALPHAFLY. It's marginal. You can't really tell the difference of 1mm, well, at least I couldn't anyway. Wearing either shoe, you're going to feel like you're lifted off the ground quite a lot, almost like you're wearing platform shoes. Despite the 2 shoes being very similar, they do have noticeably different rides, and both shoes have different things going for it and against it. The most notable thing for me is the stability. The ALPHAFLY is superior here, much more stable. I think it's ever so slightly wider and makes for a more stable shoe, whereas the Next Percent 2 feels more nimble. You definitely get a lot more side-to-side movement though, and that's reminiscent of previous models, but with a slightly more stable ride comes a slightly clunkier shoe overall. It just doesn't feel quite as quick, fast or poppy as the Next Percent 2, and I'm noticing just a little less bounce from that foam and plate as well. Now don't get me wrong, it's still a very fast shoe, but I think the Next Percent 2's weight just gives that ride a little bit more bounce, a little bit more spring, and just makes that overall kind of transition a little easier. So for the Alpha, I'm going to score it a 9, and the Next Percent 2 also a 9. I think there's good and bad points that kind of balance one another out here, and depending what kind of a ride that you're looking for, is ultimately it's going to come down to your personal choice really, if you're looking for a more stable ride or whether you're looking for a slightly faster ride. Onto the outsole then. Both shoes are pretty similar in the layout of the outsole. One big piece of black rubber covering the forefoot with 2 strips of rubber on the lateral and medial sides, which are pretty much running the length of the shoe from mid to the back of the shoe. The biggest difference is the amount of rubber on the ALPHAFLY versus the 2. The piece covering the front is much thicker on the ALPHAFLY, and on the Next Percent 2 the strips are a little bit shorter as well. So traction wise though, both shoes offer really decent grip on tarmac, with both shoes doing well in slick and wet conditions. You're not really going to feel the difference, I don't think, in terms of traction. However, what you are going to notice the difference with is just how noisy the ALPHAFLY is. And I think that chunky black rubber, those air pods at the front, and that kind of hollow gap in between the pods, and I think that's what causes this kind of really kind of slap, very noticeable extra noise as you pound the pavement. Now then, the Next Percent 2 aren't the quietest of shoes either, but they're a lot quieter than the Alphas. So scoring wise, it's going to be a 7 for the Alpha and an 8 for the Next Percent 2. Right, on to the price now then. £240 for the Next Percent 2 and £280 for the ALPHAFLYs. And I suspect the ALPHAFLY is commanding that bigger price tag for no other reason really than its prestige as the shoe that broke the 2-hour marathon on the feet of Eliud Kipchoge. Neither shoe is particularly competitive in the pricing department. When the Vaporfly first came out, it was leaps and bounds above the competition. It took everyone else a couple of years to catch up, so you could kind of somewhat justify its $240 price tag well above anything else at the time. Now though, the competition have really caught up to Nike and are pricing their shoes at up to £100 less than the ALPHAFLY. I mean, that's pretty huge, and I really hope Nike take this into consideration soon. Other shoes from different brands are beginning to top the podiums, and just for the sake of my bank balance, I hope they bring down the price of both of these shoes to at least be a little bit closer to their competitors. So on the price front then, I'm going to score the Next Percent 2 a 5 and the ALPHAFLY a 3. Both of these shoes could do a lot better on the pricing front. So that brings us to the end of the review. Let's total up the scores and find out who the winner is. So the total score for the Alpha is 37.5 and the Next Percent 2 is 41.6. If we take the pricing out of it, then it's a very small gap, so 34.5 for the ALPHAFLY to 36.6. So frankly, both shoes performing really well. I can see why I had that dilemma of choosing which one I'm going to wear for the Brighton Marathon. There really isn't a lot in it as I was expecting. The price could be the main deciding factor as well. And then also kind of thrown in, if you want the kind of more stable ride compared to a lighter, slightly faster ride with the Next Percent 2. At the moment, I'm leaning towards the Next Percent 2 for Brighton. I'm going to do a few more workouts in them. Going to do a marathon pace run in a couple of weeks as well. And also I've just ordered another carbon plated shoe, which will be interesting to see how they stack up against these two. I mean, if it's as light and as stable, if it's as light as this one and as stable as this one, it could be the winner. So check out that video coming up soon. If I go for the Next Percent 2, I'm definitely going to need a little bit more ankle and core strength to help out with that stability. But I think that extra lightweight and pop possibly just nudges it ahead of the ALPHAFLY for me at the moment. Right, I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget, if you haven't already, to hit that like and subscribe button and check out my other shoe reviews and videos. Thanks for watching, and until the next one, be the best you.